Hey, Milton, how you doing?
All right.
Good. I'm here with Milton today, Milton Miller, and Milton is one of 27 of us, men and women, who have run or walked across America, and we consolidated or worked together to come up with this book. We each have a chapter in this book about our stories. And today I'm going to introduce you guys to Milton and ask Milton some questions. And I got to tell you, as you could imagine, people who run or walk across country are there's a bunch of free-spirited people in here, but I would say Milton is at the top of the list of the free-spirited people, which I love. And Milton, it really shows through in your chapter. I mean,
I hope it does.
oh, it's a combination of like philosophy, why you ran, how you ran, and it's a great how to run across country, but I love the philosophy that you threw in there. It's just a spectacular chapter. So to get started with, Milton, just tell us a little bit about where you're from, where you live now, and why you first ran across the country, because you ran across twice.
That's correct. So I live in Miami, and I am from around here mostly. When I think that the question where you are from is it's complicated. It would be better to ask sometimes, where are you local? You know, where do you feel local? Either because that's where most of your friends or connections are, or maybe because that's where most of your memories are. And I think that I'm local to Boston and Miami. But uh, but enough about that. Let me tell you why. Why I did it. In 2010, I was moving back to Miami from Boston, and I was pretty happy with my life in general. I thought that things were okay financially. Things were okay in every other way except my body. I was really overweight at that time, and for the first time, I was unhappy with it. It never hit me before, uh, that dissatisfaction. But at some point, I thought, well, I have a mindset of Lance Armstrong and the body of Homer Simpson. This is not making any sense. And and I and and I at that time I read Into the Wild, and there is a phrase Into the Wild. There is a point in which it says you need to measure yourself against something much bigger than you, to see what it is that you are made from, what you are made of. And then that phrase resonated with me, and I decided to do something radical. I'm not very good at moderation, not very good at doing things in a normal, measured way. Um, so I thought, okay, I'm going to do something really, really different, and something so difficult that I cannot be sure that I can do it. Because if you decide to just go to the gym, you may fail at do it, but at least you knew that you could. You knew it was possible. You know, there is no doubt that you can, drive to the gym and spend an hour there. But if you say, well, I'm going to run across the continent, you can make a really convincing case that you may not be able to do it. So I thought that, I was also watching Ed Izzard at that time. Ed Izzard ran around England. He did 47 marathons in 51 days, and did a self-destruct. And we are about the same age. About He was almost as heavy as I was in the beginning. Um, so I thought, well, he's a comedian. He's not like a super athlete. If he could do it, I can probably do it too. So I got busy figuring out how to do it. I already knew why, then figuring out how was relatively easy. Uh, and I started the mental preparation for it. And after 5 months preparing, I So in 5 months, I went from couch potato to walking across America. And in the beginning, I was literally mostly walking. It was not even a jog; it was a shuffle. I was, I tried to look like I'm jogging, just to not fall into the muscle memory of walking all the time. But by any measurable timing, it wasn't even jogging. It was like a fast walk. Uh,
Well, let me ask you, if you don't mind, prior to that, had you done any distance running at all, or would you say you were not a runner at all prior to making
at
this
all.
decision? Not
At
at all.
all. I never ran to the bus. Nothing.
That's incredible.
I was a seriously overweight, uh, lazy guy. I am, well, I still am. I am lazy as one can be, but I learned with time, especially with all my travels, I learned to balance being inefficient, with being at the same time being inefficient, but not so much that it discourages you. For instance, I don't go to the supermarket and buy a lot of food, like I used to, American way. Now I go to the supermarket once a day and I buy just enough food to cook for the same day, maybe a little bit more. That
Wow.
means it's inefficient. I go to the supermarket like 10 times more than most people do. But that means I can walk to it,
Well,
which is even more inefficient. So I burn more energy now.
I want to ask you about, because both times, and want you to talk a little bit about both times. We talked about why you ran the first time, but
Yeah,
4 years later in 2014, you ran across country the other direction. But
right. Yeah, but
both times you ran unsupported, which I have such an admiration for. When I ran
but,
across country,
but
I
it was
support groups.
unsupported for a very simple reason, Jim. It's just because I couldn't find anybody to support me. Well, the first time it was like a little bit supported. I had a friend that she was helping me with some logistics, and she would travel to a few cities. So she went to New Orleans, and then Houston, and then Los Angeles. So she met me in those three cities. So I had some support, but I knew that most of the time I would be depending on the people I meet along the way. Uh, and that worked very well. I network a lot. I network really well.
And
Uh,
that was with a stroller, right? Your
the
first
first
time?
time was with the stroller. That's
Give
right.
us an idea what all goes on that stroller. I
Well,
mean, not everything, but did you carry a tent, sleeping bag, and enough food?
I actually carried exactly a backpack, a 45-liter backpack with my camping gear, clothes, a little bit of food, a small computer, and you know, small stuff. Um, and some basic camping gear and a sleeping bag, winter sleeping bag. And so sometimes I would fold the stroller and leave it on the ditch on the side of the road, and put the backpack on and walk into the woods or into the desert. It's very easy to camp that way, and it's very easy to find a location where nobody can see you. Your safety, if you are doing wild camping like that, in all kinds of properties, allegedly in private property or in parks or in anything. It's very important that nobody see you. If you are invisible, you're safe.
Yep.
So I use the backpack like that. But there is another difference between those two adventures that I think is much more significant, much more meaningful. The first time, it was uh, uh, of course, both experiences were life changing. But the first one, I had a challenge to solve, which was to change my body, to change the way I to change the way I relate to my own body, and become athletic, and and all that. And I had to go through an entire process of reviewing my life and the way I think and the way I handle my own brain. Uh, that was and that was in my mind a challenge. So when I did the first walk across America, in my mind I was going over a spectacular challenge that was so difficult I couldn't be sure that it would be possible. So I like to say that the challenge is so big that you cannot do it. First, you need to grow into the person that maybe can do it, and then you go for it. And in this case, the growth was mostly mental preparation. On the second run, I didn't have that challenge anymore. I pretty much knew that I had the formula for going across America, but I was much more inspired this time, not by Into the Wild, but by the movie The Way. When I saw the way in which they do El Camino de Santiago, I really got inspired to go across America as a pilgrimage. Even though I'm the only pilgrim, that's fine. That's perfectly all right. Uh, but I thought this is going to be a pilgrimage back, and it's going to then. It feels completely different. It's much more social. It's slower. Uh, End up being faster because I was leaner and I was in better shape. But there was no focus on speed like the first one that I had to I was trying to keep a certain pace because I was trying to make it in 100 days. The second time I didn't care anymore,
Hmm.
and end up being closer to 100 days. But the second one was a pilgrimage, and now a pilgrimage is a transformational experience, but in a very different nature. In
I have
fact,
I, I have to ask you if you don't mind, because a lot of people will be reading this book and some watching these videos planning on using a stroller. And you did it both ways with a stroller
yeah,
and a backpack. How many flats did you get? How many problems did you have with your stroller on your first crossing?
in the beginning, a lot. I was having more than a flat a day in average. It was like two a day in average.
Wow.
And then when I reached Perry, Florida, that was around 2 weeks in. I was exhausted. I was more exhausted of fixing the tires and maintaining the stroller than the walk. But so I stopped at a Walmart, and I bought new tires. Then I bought liners, plastic liners for the tires, and those self-sealing
Tubes.
tubes. And I bought a new pump, and I replaced everything. So I put the new tires, new everything, and then it got a lot better. My average changed to like almost no flats until I reached West Texas, and that's where the little prickly things, the little pointy, whatever the name is. But those nails, they are made in hell. The devil makes them himself, and they are all over the place. So I start getting flats again. So I bought more liners and I put double liners on the tires. Um, and then it got better. Got a lot better. I think I was having like a flat a week, maybe.
So if you were giving somebody advice, would you advise the backpack or the stroller? Which if you were
Depends.
doing it again, which way would you do it?
It depends on the style. If you are a good runner, if you want speed, if your running performance is very good, you are going to enjoy the stroller a little better because the stroller, a good stroller, will allow you to go faster, and it will allow you to carry a little more stuff. But if you want a more social, leisurely uh, and more freedom of movement, then a small backpack will be better. And then you study. There is a kind of let's call it a discipline called fast packing. So instead of backpacking, you're fast packing. So you have a backpack that is small enough that you can even jog a little with it. It doesn't bounce much. It's an exercise in minimalism. You really need small gear, especially the camping gear. Is challenging because you have very little space to put winter camping gear. In my case, so
I,
if you
I,
are fast, I would say use a stroller.
I can't imagine, I know how many experiences I had on one crossing, but this is going to be a tough question. Either crossing, can you give us like the highlight, the high spot in your epic journey, or the high day and the low day in either one of your journeys?
The the high is relatively easy to answer, but it's not one. It's several. It happened a number of times, and that was when uh, I was going through a difficult time. It's mostly the boredom, the horrible boredom that covers you like a cloud many times. And then someone came along to run with me or to walk with me, or someone brought supplies and all that. And then I felt that I was not alone. That moment is special. And in the most remote the location, uh, the more value it has.
Mhm.
So imagine you are in the desert after like 10 days without a shower, and someone drives many miles to meet you and bring you a cold beer and food, and then spend some time along the way with you, or they pick you up on the road to take you to their home and host you, and the next day they drive you back to that same spot so you can continue. That was amazing. It's unbelievable. Uh, that is the top moment. Is when you look around and you see that you are not alone. The worst, I would say, the most difficult is there are some days where you need to fight so hard to not stop, to not give up. And those days are mostly during the last one third or so. uh, because I did it slow. In my case, it was like about 4 months, 4 month trip. uh, I think I could handle the first 3 months relatively well, but the last month is just torture. It's like you're in one way, you know that, okay, I'm getting close to it. Of course, you're not going to give up at the end, easily. But that is it sucks all the fun out of it. At the end, you are doing it just because you need to finish. Because you wouldn't respect yourself if you didn't.
Well,
So all of that battle, that internal battle inside your mind, is in high gear at this point.
and obviously for you, that low spot wasn't too low, because you did you did the same trip again in the opposite direction 4 years later.
Well, when I finished the first one, people would ask me if I was planning to do something like that again, and I was very sure I was answering no, never do it again. But in 2012, I ran the Ragnar from Miami to Key West, and I ran a section that there was at night along the Everglades. So it was Everglades in one side and the ocean on the other side. And that little section is unsupported. So the van could not be around. I was alone on the road. And being on the side of the road running that, I felt a tremendous urge to do it again. I felt that, wow, I'm really missing being on the road. And in 2013, when I decided to do it, just a year later, then I prepared a little. The logistics were better. I knew more how to do it. I knew how to arrange everything to do it alone. Uh, and also, I felt more free in the sense that I was not doing that for charity. I was not doing it for anybody. I didn't have any rules to follow. So I thought, oh, I'll be a pilgrim. I'll just put a little backpack and go. So I was excited with that this time. So that took me over the hump of that question. Would you do it again? And I was sure, no, never do it again. But I did it.
You,
And then after that, people were asking me, so, are you going to do it again? And I said, no, no way. But then I decided to do something a lot more difficult, a lot more. So uh, I used to joke that after you run across America, if you tell your friends that you're going to run to the moon, they will start buying telescopes because now they believe you.
yeah,
Whatever you say, they believe you.
yeah.
So you have to be very careful with what you say.
You have so
But,
many great sayings in there, and I saved like 8 of them, and I'm only going to share a couple. But I'm going to read part of your chapter. It is during the hard times that people change the most. Hard times often leave them no choice. People suffer through breakups, bankruptcies, loss of loved ones, layoffs, divorces, evictions, and as a result, they usually reemerge as better people, but in a way they would not have achieved with decision and planning. I mean, that is just like, I love that.
yeah.
I absolutely love it. And
Yeah, most transformation happens is sparked by crisis. So what if you create the crisis? What if you choose it? And that is another great quote that I remember Jordan Peterson saying that, but I don't remember if that's his quote. That he says that the growth comes from the voluntary embracing a hardship with a meaning. So you choose the hardship that you go through. You choose which dragon you will try to slay. You choose the challenge, and you know that there will be suffering. That let me choose the words carefully. There will be pain. To overcome that challenge. There is no suffering, but there can be pain.
you have a great saying in there, and I won't read that one too, but you talk about pain is a language all of its own. And that,
Yeah, pain is a language. The body uses it to talk to your brain. It's a defense mechanism that we develop in evolution to help us save energy and self-preserve. And it has strong evolutionary reasons for that, but it has very little real application in the modern world when we have cars and comfort and conveniences all around us, and we don't need to self-preserve them that much. And so instead of just keeping us alive, that same mechanism now keeps us fat.
one tip I have to throw in there that you threw in that I have never heard of all the runners I've spoke to and all the crossers, and you said if it's really miserably cold or if it's an incredible downpour and you're just shot, go rent a U-Haul van and drive that van somewhere private and sleep in that van. Total cost will be $19.95 plus tax. And I thought, wow, what a brilliant.
Yeah,
I mean, Milton, that could save somebody's run across country. That
it
one tip alone could save somebody.
came out of desperation. Yeah, I was in Pecos, Texas, and Pecos is in a boom of oil exploration. It's in the middle of the shale revolution. So all the hotels are full. Everything is full, and it's a city where most people there are contractors. It's inhospitable in the middle of the freaking desert. So I got there. I couldn't find any place to stay, and still there. Yes. So I couldn't find any place to stay, and then it was going to be cold, and one of the very few times during the year that it rains there. So uh, I start, and then I was walking around the city, and I saw a U-Haul, and I thought, why not? I'll just rent a van, right? So I walked to the U-Haul, rented a van, and made my usual camping inside the van. I parked at the Walmart where people park their RVs, and so no. First, I drove to a service station on the highway to take a shower, and so I paid $10 for the shower, and then I drove. Now I was feeling fresh and much better. Drove to the Walmart, and then the cold rain started. Timing was perfect. $19 plus
It's a
$1. $1.
real brilliant tip. I mean, really, it's just a brilliant tip that I'm sure other people will take advantage of, and I myself on future trips. But anyway, Milton Miller, your chapter is just spectacular. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed reading it. It adds so much to the book.
Happy.
Yeah, here's the book for anybody who's interested. Across America on Foot. It'll be available on Amazon sometime in March. And Milton, thank you so much for not only contributing an incredible chapter with a whole lot of philosophy and tips how to plan and how to run across America, but also for doing the interview.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Jim.
You're awesome.
All
Looking
right.
forward to meeting you in person, brother.
All right.